Hello, my loves, and welcome to another episode of Talk and Tea with Auntie. I apologize for the hiatus we took in our little bit while I was figuring out how to make this the way I wanted it to be, but I have some big news. In the next few episodes, I'm going to be taking this to be a live in person interview for y'all for both podcast and here on YouTube. I have been talking with an old friend who does video and sound production, and we're going to start trying to work together and make this a more in person interview style process. Now, if you're joining me for the first time, I'm excited to have you join me because this is a comfy, cozy spot of a talk show where we get to interview everyday people about their fascinating and wonderful everyday lives to be a little comfy place to sit, relax, and learn about somebody just like you in another career path or in another way of life. And I'm so excited to do this because right now we're going to be talking to somebody who is an aspiring author and goes by the name of Joseph. I'm very excited to interview them, to hear about their process, and hear what took them to becoming a writer. So let's bring Joseph onto our stage today. Welcome, Joseph. Joseph, welcome to Talking Tea with Auntie. How are you doing, my love?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, honey. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. We're going to cover the fact that you're a writer, but
hmm
I want to talk about your life. What took you to becoming a writer?
Um, that's a really good question. You would think that's one I thought about. Um, I always loved reading, and a big part of it is just thinking that I can produce stories. These stories that I've always read is amazing. That I can be on the other side of it, and hopefully people read what I write and they enjoy it, and it takes them through that journey too. That to me is the main purpose of writing.
That's beautiful. So, where are you originally from? Are you from, where in the world or states are you?
I'm from Austin, Texas.
Oh, so you're
Um,
right up the road from me.
well, I live in San Antonio now, so I've been here for
Oh,
about yeah, I've been here for about 13 years. So it went by really quickly.
I've been here for about eight, I think, 2016. And yeah, before you knew it, I'm now 35 and no longer in my mid 20s anymore. So
Yeah, it happens. Even though I still feel like I'm 16 and lost, but
until you try to pretend to be 16 and lost, and then you realize your joints don't do the same.
exactly. Yeah, I've experienced that a few times. But yeah, I'm
It's
from Austin. All my people are there. I moved down here with my boyfriend at the time. He's my husband now. And then, like I said, 13 years passed, and here we are.
that's beautiful. And so you went from Austin's culture. How much has that culture changed? And was that culture a part of the reason why you read? Or tell us all about that.
Austin has changed a lot. We always say we're priced out now. It's so expensive we can't move back.
Hmm.
But it's where all my people are from. So my family on my mom's side, I'm very close to my mom's side of the family. They're all in Austin. So even San Antonio, even though it's close by, is far just because no one leaves. Um, but for me, the Austin culture was my family's from East Side, which is the mainly Chicano part of Austin. So to me, that's Austin. So Austin, of course, now is a little more expensive, a little more California. But going back to see my grandma is still always the same. So that's Austin for me. Austin's
Oh,
always.
that's beautiful and wonderful. And so, in that time period where you were growing up, what type of books did you typically read? What was your literature of choice?
I actually didn't become a big reader till I was in middle school, and I discovered Stephen King, and a light just switched on. I couldn't read enough. He was my first favorite author. He's still up there. But then when I was a teenager, I discovered Anne Rice, and she became my idol, my goddess. And I was fortunate enough to meet her once. Of course, I was so nervous I couldn't even speak, but but it was nice to say I was able to meet her. So they've really been two of my guiding lights as a reader and as a writer. And then I was lucky enough when I was at UT as an undergrad to study under Ana Menendez, who is this amazing Cuban American writer. And I owe a huge debt of gratitude to her. She was a wonderful writing instructor, very generous of spirit. And in fact, I'm taking an online class with her on the first. I'm very excited about. So, all these years later, I'll be studying under her again. But those are
That's
definitely huge
fantastic.
influences for me.
Oh, that's great. And so it sounds like you primarily enjoyed horror and the spooky genres
Mhm.
of literature. Is that what you're gravitating to reading now?
Yeah, I still go to the Stephen King. I still go to the Anne Rice shelf on my bookcase. I've always been a huge horror buff. I think that's because when I was younger, our parents didn't really let us watch it. So it's tantalizing. When we went to the video store, I'd go to the horror section and look at the cases. And now that I can watch it, I watch a ton of it and I read a ton of it and I love it.
And so is that what your writing is currently leaning towards, or are you leaning towards another genre?
It's somewhat supernatural. It's more magical realism, not horror. Um, I don't know. I think writing horror would be really scary. Like, how do you actually scare someone with words? That's like Stephen King, of course, is a master at it, but that's Stephen King. So that's a challenge I would like to tackle someday. But the novel I'm working on right now is more magical realism.
I love. So is this your first novel you've embarked upon, or have you written something previously?
I've written short stories for years, and when I was much younger, I did write, the novel that's always stayed in the desk drawer, which was kind of a retelling of Frankenstein. But I think that'll stay in the desk drawer. It was a good springboard. But the novel I'm working on now, it's been with me for years, and I guess it's because I'm getting older. I finally got really serious and buckled down. So I'm in my second draft now, and just hoping for the best.
That's fantastic. And so what has you been doing in this time? Because right now you're aspiring to become an author and writer. What have you been doing career-wise with your what have you been doing with your life?
um, I recently joined a writing group here in San Antonio
Hmm.
that meets on Thursdays, and it's a very small group, but they've been extremely helpful. So I'll take a few pages at a time. We'll go over it together. They'll give me great notes, and I come home and I make those changes that week, and then the next week I'll take them, the next few pages. So I'm in that process. Very recently, I also started digging out those old stories that I have and revising them, and I'm gonna start. Well, I've started submitting to writing contests and just getting the motor going. It's not going to happen by itself. You got to put the work out there, as scary as that can be. So that's the main part of the process right now. Getting the writing group was a huge blessing because one, I'm not disciplined on my own. So it's nice to have, kind of that external pressure to get some new writing done. And then also writing is, it's a lonely habit. It's
Yeah.
you and the notepad and the computer or what have you. So it's nice to have a group of writers to sit and talk about. And when you hear them say, "Oh, I didn't get anything done this week," or "I wrote these pages and they were really shitty," it's good to hear that from somebody else and know you're not the only one in that boat.
That's fantastic. So what was your career prior to now wanting to make the switch to being a writer?
I was a teacher for 13 years, and yeah, so I taught English, well, mainly English. The very last year I taught Texas history, and currently I'm an online editor, so I correct papers 8 hours a day online. So
Oh, so you're perfectly geared towards it already.
yeah, I like to think so. It's funny because I went to high school for science. I went to a science academy, and I loved biology. And I always say chemistry chased me out of my bio major. Chemistry and I don't get along. So I was a wandering student. I switched over to education, and then that degree plan was too long for me. So I considered switching to classics, and then I jumped on English, and I went from a straight C student to a straight A student. So I figured this must be the niche. So finally graduated after 9 years with my bachelor's, and then I went to get my master's in literature, and I was so happy to be able to study that.
That's wonderful. And so in this exploration, because clearly you've already been throughout your life, you've been kind of geared to becoming a writer in
Hmm.
both teaching English and then getting your master's in literature. And so, has there, along with this horror and spooky tales that you have imbibed, is there other influences, either culturally or just in your everyday life, that have swayed or been part of your influence in what you enjoy reading or writing or your storytelling in general?
Yeah, it's hard to pin down, but there's this, especially in Anne Rice, I think there's this sense that she was always aiming for, and it's a huge question, but what it is to be human, which is kind of counterintuitive because she wrote about supernatural creatures, but in doing that, she really got at what it is to be human, what it is to suffer, what it is to want to love, to be with someone, to be alone, what that feels like. That's the kind of stuff I gravitate to. And I think writers like Stephen King get the short end of the stick because, yes, he's a horror writer, but he writes about that too. His characters are, they're dealing with their past, they're dealing with their own demons while they're dealing with, whatever monsters in the story. That's the writing that grabs me. I want to
And
read.
so, what does it mean to be human for you?
To be human it means suffering. As much as it means love and the great big things, it means suffering and being able to get through the suffering. There's a quote by Anne Rice that I always think about, and she was talking about when she lost her daughter when her daughter was about 4, and she told her friend that the darkness never leaves, but you learn to live with the darkness. And for me, that's what being human is. The pain that you experience doesn't leave, but you learn to live with it. It becomes part of your experience. So, of course, we all want the great things, but how do you deal with those moments? That's what I'm interested in too.
And to springboard off of that, have there been any instances of pain that have made it into your writing or that have influenced certain paths? And if so, would you tell us about it?
Absolutely. When I was younger, I was a serial dater. I was afraid to be
Mm-hmm.
alone. So, I was the one that hopped from relationship to relationship. And to this day, I don't know why, but the end of relationships were always, always the end of the world for me. They were very painful. And, of course, now that I'm older, I like to think I'm a little more level-headed. But they were extremely painful. And then there was a couple years when I was living out in California with my sister and brother-in-law, because my brother-in-law was in the Coast Guard. And of course, living there, of course, I didn't have my support system that I was used to having in Austin, and I went through, some difficult times out there, and I draw on those a lot. In fact, when I was going through my old stories just yesterday, I realized how much of that was in those stories. So that's interesting to look back because your writing's also kind of a journal of what you've gone through, even though it's fiction. Of course, you put yourself in there.
Mm-hmm.
So that has come into play. I think I'm an atheist now, but I grew up strongly Catholic. I went to Catholic school till I was 10, and that
Mm-hmm.
definitely influenced my writing.
I'm
And
assuming you're Hispanic, so I'm shocked.
yes, my mother doesn't know that, and if she knew that, she would kill me. And in fact, before I got married, I switched to Episcopalian because,
Hmm.
you know, Catholicism was never going to support me and my husband. So, the Episcopalian church is more welcoming. We got married in an Episcopalian church. And when I told her even that I switched to Episcopalian, oh, that in itself was a whole issue. So, yeah, but yeah, the religious upbringing and knowing you're in an institution that you're rejected by, even though you try to
Hmm.
ignore it, that definitely affected me. And it does show up in the writing, that rejection.
Yeah, and is that still imbibed? Because right now you've been married for a while now,
Hmm.
and a lot of those experiences from the early late, like all of us have gone. I mean, the amount of men I've never mind. Uh,
You can go on. It's
in
okay.
inside in San Antonio alone has been like a place where everybody wanted to date me. So it was like, and anyway, but I'm assuming those kind of influences no longer in vibe because I'm Hispanic también.
Hmm.
But what now? Because you've been in a happily married happy marriage.
Hmm.
What is now kind of leaking into your writing that you are noticing after you've written? Are you seeing any current trends?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Um, I we do these writing warm-ups in the group, and I've started a couple of short stories with those warm-ups. And I think, one, it's a little too early for me to see what those trends are, only because I've been lazy about my writing. So what I'm dealing with now, I started a while back, and two, uh, there's a writer that and I can't think of her name now, and it's she's a big writer. But she talked about how when she's writing, she doesn't know why she's writing it, but she knows that a few years down the line, she'll realize, oh, this is what was going on in my head at the time, and this is what I had to get out. And I feel like what I'm working on now, maybe a few years later, I'll see, oh, this is what was, the patterns that were going through my head. So I honestly, I do still draw on a lot of that former pain, those old ideas currently. I like to think in a few years I'll see that I'm treading some new water. I think it's a little, it's a little soon to see what those currents are right now.
Fully understand. And so you've been writing, how long have you been writing this book in and of itself?
Oh, Nathan, a long time. My husband's been on me for years to finish it already. I'd say a good 7 years. But a lot of that time, again, was me, I have this thing where, and I guess a lot of us do, where because I know it's not going to be perfect, that kind of scares me about working on it, because it's never going to be what I see in my head completely. And so that kind of turns me off from it. And I have to tell myself, just do it. Just do it. Even if you write a pile of crap, it's going to be better than nothing. At least have something to work with. So that's a constant struggle for me, is forcing myself to do it. I
Maybe
guess
a
that's a
little
nice way of saying I've
overwhelmed.
been lazy.
I think we're all allowed to be a little lazy as long as we make little steps to improving it.
Yeah. So, but no, it's been a long time coming. When I'm with the writing group, one of them even asked me, "This world is really realized has this been with you for a long time?" And I said, "Yeah, it's been with me for a few years." So yeah.
That's wonderful. And so are you, so let's switch back to your past a little bit. What was your upbringing like? Clearly you're from an Hispanic background.
Mm-hmm.
Yo también. But
Mm-hmm.
what was your background? What was your home life like? Let's let people see what built you to who you are now, writing these stories that you're looking to get out into the universe.
Okay. Like I said, I grew up in a big family, the big Mexican family, seven aunts and uncles, lots of cousins. So even though I only have one sister, that was never an issue because I grew up with all my cousins. So, it's like I had tons of brothers and sisters. There was a group of four of us, me, my sister, and two of my other cousins were pretty close in age. And the four of us were very tight growing up. And, we still are now, minus one who recently passed away. But, I can say I was very happy as a kid. I had all that. I had my cousins. When I was growing up, my mom didn't work. So it was the very traditional, mom at home, dad always working. So that was great. I didn't realize it at the time, but as a child, I was also very anxious, very anxious. Um, of course, now I know what that is, and I've talked to doctors about it. I know how to take care of it. But I remember from fourth to fifth grade, I was going to switch schools, and to me, that was it was beyond the end of the world. Like I literally couldn't sleep. And so I remember, of course, to my parents, it's like, you'll get over it. Just go to sleep. It's a new school. You'll be fine. But I remember sitting outside their room so I could see the light from the TV just to comfort myself. And, I think back now and I think, it's a shame that no one recognized that and was able to say, this is what you're feeling and to help me through it. Similarly, when I was about 17, and when I realized, yes, I'm gay, and this is going to be going to not be good. I went through a 2-year depression, and the relationship I was in at that time didn't help any. And again, I didn't know what that was. I just knew I was miserable at the time. I couldn't sleep, and I just knew I was crying all the time. And of course, growing up in a Hispanic family, you're supposed to be strong, and you're a man. And so in my head, it was just like, what's wrong with me? And I wish someone had been there to tell me, you know what? this is what's going on. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. There are ways to get past this, you know. And so, yes, I had. I can't complain about my childhood in a huge way. It was great, but at the same time, there were things that were going on that I had to deal with by myself as a kid that I really wish someone had been there to guide me through.
Hmm. And so you been able to, oh gosh, what was the wording I wanted to use? And so since you've grown older, you've grown up.
Hmm.
Do you think that any of that experience is leaching into your story or helping you form this story? Because I know a lot of people who've taken their life experience, I know we touched on it, and made it sometimes an allegory of what they went through. Or is the world you're creating just something you've always imagined and wanted to create?
No, it's I'd go with the former. My experiences very much shape my writing, and I think a lot of what I write about is that feeling of being alone. Because
Mm-hmm.
even just thinking about it, I can feel that anxiety again. And how do we deal with that? What people around us help us deal with that? Another favorite writer of mine, Anne Lamott, she talks about how if we can just give someone a minute of time when they're in a place where they just can't get out of, and if you can just say, "Hey, do you need a minute? Because I have a minute." It's so small, but at the same time, it's so huge to that person. So again, going back to that question of how are we human? What do we do when we hit those feelings of loneliness and not being able to escape? Who's there to help us out of that? And I think that shades my stories a lot.
And who eventually came there to help you out of that?
Um, I like to think I had a lot to do with that I helped myself out of it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, my husband helped me out a lot because I didn't get diagnosed with general anxiety disorder till I was in grad school. So I was already in my early 30s by then. And before that, I was a new teacher, and of course, that's never easy. So the anxiety just ratcheted up. In fact, there was one time I just had a complete breakdown when I had to go back from spring break just because I was so stressed out. On one of our first dates, I ended up in the emergency room because I had a panic attack and I didn't know what it was at the time. I thought I was having a stroke. So yeah, so I think being with Paul, my husband now, he kind of forced me to face up to what was going on and say, here, let's actually fix this instead of you just suffering through it all the time. And I was, you hear these stories about how people have to go through, many medications to find the right one. And I was lucky in that I found, well, one, I found someone, an expert I could talk to. And two, they were able to find the right medication for me, pretty quickly. And so that really helped even things out, especially in the stresses of grad school. So I credit Paul a lot with that for helping me identify what was going on and, facing it. And then, I have, of course, a great support system. My sister, who I'm very close to, I have a great best friend who lives out in Vegas right now. And, I don't mean to paint such a gloomy picture. I have people I can rely on, but getting past that was huge for me.
It's not necessarily a gloomy picture. It's a lot of the times the prisons are of our own making, even on the brightest of days. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if even in the moment, we tend to feel like this is the most dire thing because our brain is experiencing it as that. When we
Mm-hmm.
can be surrounded by all the most loving people in the world, and sometimes it takes us looking past the own mental cell we've kind of created through various reasons. It could be external stimuli that's caused this type of reaction. It could be us internalizing trauma that we've experienced or things we've done. But being able to look through the bars of our own prison on occasion to see the hand can really help us kind of lessen that prison we've made. And you mentioned earlier that you have been going through bouts of laziness when it comes to writing your book.
Uh-huh.
What does a writer who should be writing his book do other than write his book, and what keeps him on occasion, like the hobbies and things that distract you from it?
Um, so I'm one of those people who has like 50 interests and has a hard time sticking with them, which I guess, explains part of my writing habits. But a huge part that's always helped me, as far as I can remember, is just walking and clearing my head and just being able to put thoughts together. when I'm outside and moving, I can do that in a way that I can't do when I'm inside. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I got the first scenes for this novel when I was on a walk, and it just went from there. So I guess just getting out and moving, and then also I like hobbies where I'm free to think, like cross stitching. I can cross stitch for a good couple hours, and it just lets my mind go. So anything that takes me out of where I am and just lets the head process helps me a lot.
I fully understand that. And so, do you do gardening? Do you
I
do
do garden.
crochet?
Yes, I have my little raised bed outside. I haven't started it yet this year, but I've got the seeds. So yeah, I've got my little garden. It's good to get me outside and get me active. So yeah, all those kinds of things I think make me as a writer, because you can't sit and write all day if you haven't been out in the world and seen things and experienced things and felt things. You won't have anything to work with.
Mm-hmm. And especially because you seems like you have all these interests, but I think they help form what you are writing too, adding
Oh,
more depth to the world you're going through. And so being able to do that sounds like it's also beneficial, even though it takes away your time,
mhm.
with a delightful distraction.
That's a good way to put it. I think it helps me as a writer, so I can kind of say I'm writing even though I'm not. So, but yeah, that's been good. And then I think getting out is even more important now that I work from home. It's so easy to. I finish my shift and I close the computer, and it's so easy to just, I'm gonna read this book for a while, or I'm gonna get on the socials for a while. And it's easy to just do that and kind of close off the outside world.
Yeah. How long have you been working from remote or from home?
It'll be 3 years in November.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, pandemic.
Yeah. So, but I love it. When the pandemic was going on and I was teaching, and of course we were teaching from home, and a lot of my friends were saying, "Oh God, I'm so bored. I'm ready to go back to the school." And I was thinking, "Am I crazy? Because I'm loving that." I'm very much a homebody. I'm happy in my little shell.
That was honestly 100% me. I was more bamboozled. People were getting bored at home because more
Yeah.
like within like a month or two, I was like, "Do y'all not have hobbies? Because I like being at home. Like
Uh-huh.
I'm tipsy half the day, but you know."
That was when Tuck Cabana started serving the margaritas to the drive-through, so that was great.
Uh-huh. And then you can still order margaritas to get to be delivered. So,
Absolutely.
uh,
Mhm.
I,
So
I I'm not mad about it. There's a place that not far from here that they have a margarita delivery, and I'll be like, just gonna
that is wonderful. I think that's the best idea ever. Like,
exactly,
yeah, we
exactly.
were
I
those
know.
people who would buy one taco so we can get our six margaritas.
Oh, I spent most of pandemic a little tipsy, so I'm not at all mad on it at
Yeah.
all.
I think a lot of us did. I think that helped a lot.
Oh yeah, I think it helped us deal with the situation that we were going through and kind of cope with everything.
Yes.
And then everything smelled like tequila for a while because all the hand sanitizer smelled like
Yes.
it.
Yeah, I think it's such a weird time because everything just stopped. And, like, what do you do? Especially, because as a teacher, you're just so go, 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 go. And all of a sudden, I remember before it was right before spring break, we had our last faculty meeting. And our principal told us, take your stuff home. We're not going to get closed down just in case. And what happened? We got closed down for months. And so, yeah, it was just so weird to stop all of a sudden.
Hmm. I didn't get to honestly, I actually did not get to stop because I worked in legal marketing for a personal injury law firm out of
Oh,
Austin. I had just moved to Austin to be with my ex-boyfriend. We did not survive pandemic.
oh,
Um, but I did not get to literally one day I just moved to Austin. 3 days later, like, okay, take your laptops home. We're working from home now. I was like, huh? Okay. Um, and there I was shut in my little apartment up off the north side of Austin, off I think it was
oh.
Riddiman. It was the barrio.
Uh-huh.
It was the barrio. So it was like a hallway apartment. And I was just like, well, here we go.
Yeah, it was an adventure. It definitely
It
was.
was. And so what is the adventure if you feel like telling a little bit about it? What is the premise of your current? You don't have to give full details, but just like a
Mhm.
little tantalizing bit of what it is you're writing.
Okay. So it's set in New Orleans because New Orleans is my favorite place in the world. If I had the money, I'd move there now. But I did that on purpose as a way to go back. But it's set in New Orleans post Katrina, and it concerns a reporter, and he runs into a man who sees visions, and he sees visions of people, right when the storm hit. And for this guy who's seeing the visions, he has his mental problems, and these visions torment him, but they also give him a sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so his mission is to become, to find out, why am I getting these visions? What do they mean? And the reporter ends up coming in contact with him and wants to find out his story. And so that's how it starts. So, one of my main concerns was, how can I do New Orleans justice? Because it's such a huge part of the novel, and I'm so in love with the city. So that's one of my huge concerns. And then also, of course, how do I keep the reader's interest? How do I keep this
Mm-hmm.
story interesting? But that's
Well,
the basic premise of it.
it's already intriguing as it is. Were there any other iterations prior to this that kind of evolved over time before you finally was created this character and this story?
Absolutely. So, I get the, you just get these wisps of ideas, and I have a bad habit of not writing them down. But there was one that was so intriguing to me that I had to write it down. I saw a person putting their hands in the dirt and just seeing a vision of a woman in a dress, and that little snippet just always stayed with me. And like I was saying, when I was going on one of my walks, it was a flash. I saw the reporter and I saw them running into this person and wanting to tell their story. And that's when it threaded together as a story. So yeah, and even the first draft, because I'm on my second draft now, was very different from what it is now. So it's definitely evolving and going through very different iterations.
Ah, I love that. And is the first iteration darker or is the second iteration darker? How is the flavor changed from the first draft to the second?
I think the second draft is much better as a story, because the first draft was very much me throwing up my story onto the page. So there are whole sections that I cut in the second section. For instance, in uh, the first version, the main character has this whole thing with his parents in Austin. This whole back and forth with them, and I cut that because I realized it doesn't serve the story. That was me just throwing up onto the page, expressing what I needed to express at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's necessarily gotten darker or lighter, but I think it's become more focused now. I can see what the story is, and I can take out what was just me trying to get things out.
So basically, kind of like whenever I did marketing, I would tell my clients, because I did legal marketing at for most of my career, and I would tell people, create a journal and word salad all the things you want to say
Mm-hmm.
and do for your marketing and who is your business, who are you, what is your goal, who do you serve, put that all into a word salad and then revisit it 2 days later and then prune it and refine. Okay, who's your client? Oh, well, people over the age of 45 who own a business that's smaller than $5 million. Where are you located? This is my mission. Blah, blah, blah. That way you refine it into something that's more, not palatable. What's the word I want to use? I already said refined. I'm not going to reuse refined again.
More focus.
More focused, but more intentional. The first
Yes.
intent was to get everything you needed out. And now the second piece is to be much more focused with the intent of what you're trying to do. And are there going to be more drafts, do you think?
As much as I hate to say it, I think one more will be coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just because I feel like there were still questions that I don't know the answer to, that I'm
Mm-hmm.
finding as I write. So Stephen King likes to say that writing is kind of like excavating. And so you don't know what it is to begin with. You're just you see this one toenail of a dinosaur, and then you realize, oh, there's this rib over here, and that can be really frustrating because you want to stay with this toenail, but this rib over here is really drawing your attention. And for me, that lengthens the process because I take too long to do everything. But sometimes you just got to get into it because that rib could be your story.
Yeah,
You started with a toenail, but that's not really the story. The story's over here. So
I like that.
yeah, so
And so are
I'm
you is it a snack of a book so far or is it a full course meal? And that's what when I say that I mean books I can finish in a day or two are I consider them snacks.
yeah.
Full meals is like I'm gonna be reading this for if I'm not reading continuously, it's gonna take me a month or two to finish if I'm reading it only in
Yeah.
like a chapter or two a day.
Right now, it's more on the snack side.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to flesh it out to make it more of a full meal. One thing my writers group has really helped me realize is there are a lot of points because I'm so concerned about keeping the reader interested and showing the action that there are a lot of places where I can delve in deeper and show what the characters are thinking and feeling without losing the reader. And so I think that's
Hmm.
really going to help me expand the story, which is where I think the next draft will come into play.
Can't wait. I know because like my other one of the books novelists I read is by the name of David Weber. It's a sci-fi series, but I know the original book is a snack. Like I finished it in 2 days.
Uh-huh.
The first book in the series. And now I think he just finished that timeline and the book 13, it's like the first book was a little paperback like this big. The final book is like this big. And like I have them in audiobook format and like the first one in audiobook format is maybe like 6 hours, if that. The last book was 36 hours.
Yeah, they can get long. I love books like that though, because if they're well written, you can just get lost in them. Um,
Oh yeah.
I read, of course, Stephen King's The Stand is, it's pretty well known. It's super long, but just getting lost in that book and being able to go back to that world again and again and knowing the characters, that's wonderful for me. So I love the longer books. If, of course, if they're well written.
Oh yeah. Are there any books you're currently in right now?
I am. I'm always reading something. Right now, I'm reading a book called The Ninth Life of Louis Strax, which it's kind of a strange book. It's a wonderful book. I've actually read it twice before. I'm a rereader. Actually, my sister and my cousin and we have a little book club. And so we'll take turns
Oh.
suggesting books and we'll read them together. And this was my pick. So I'm rereading that right now and they're reading it for the first time. The book we read together before that was Mexican Gothic.
Love
Um,
Mexican Gothic.
yeah, it was very atmospheric, which I love. I mean, Anne Rice, of course, does that all the time. And being in that old Victorian house with those awful people was a lot of fun. Oh yeah, I love atmospheric like that. But yeah, I'm always in the middle of reading something. I have to be.
And so what was the book prior to this that you read? That
Oh,
was new to you. That was new to you.
oh, that was new to me. Well, Mexican Gothic was new to me. That was the first time I had read that. And before that, I read. Oh, I can't think of it right now. I read a Stephen King that I actually hadn't read before, surprisingly. Duma Key. So, yeah, I read that one. So, I mean, because he's so prolific, there's always going to be books of his I haven't read, which is great. So, it's a struggle. Sometimes I have to force myself to get out of the Stephen King and the Anne Rice to try something new. But I'm also that person. I'll go to the library and I'm like, I'm just gonna, browse, and I come home with an armload of books. So I recently read the first volume of the graphic novel Preacher, which was wonderful. It's amazing. It's insane, and I loved it. So those, the more random books I tend to get from the library.
I love that. I haven't been I have not been able to go to the library in a little bit, even though I have a library card.
Mhm.
And so it sounds like you're more of a stay home type of person, not a go out to the strip type of person, at least not
No,
anymore.
absolutely. Yeah, not anymore. Yeah, I'm really happy having a glass of wine and a book, as stereotypical as that sounds. I am so happy with that. In fact, I was gonna have a glass of wine during the interview, and I could not find my damn corkscrew. I really was, but that makes me so happy. Or I'm a soaker. I can sit in a tub for a good hour, and when the water gets cold, I'll just put more hot water in there and read, and I am so happy. I'm sad.
I love soaking too. It help because I work out so much. My body's like, you're not 35.
Oh,
These bones and joints need a lot of warmth to stay pliable. And I'm like, I
uh-huh.
know. Stop yelling at me.
I know, I know. I'm in my mid 40s, so I definitely get what you're saying.
It
50 is
really is.
right around the corner.
My friends are like, oh, we are gonna be 40 in about what, 4 more years? And I was like, you can shut up. I know that. I'm very well aware. But um, and they're like, what are you gonna do? I was like, well, I'm vain, so Botox is one. People are like age gracefully. I'm like, I am. I'm gonna look like my 30s and my 40s. I'm gonna look my 40s and my 50s. That's my
There you
version of
go.
aging
Uh-huh.
gracefully. And there'll be a certain point where my face just stops moving, and I'm personally very happy with
Yes, that's the
that.
goal. It's funny you say that because I was always because my husband and my sister always say they're going to get Botox, and I was always like, no, I'm not going to get Botox. It's dumb. And then I started noticing all the crow's feet. I'm like, Botox. When are we going to
Yeah,
get the Botox?
you have to do it now because it's preventative, not restorative. And I'll do it occasionally. But I do it when I'm in Mexico, so I'll take
Okay.
regular trips to Puerto Vallarta. That is where I love to be. Plus, I'm speaking mostly Spanish while I'm there.
Hmm.
But I'll go to a little clinic there. I think she's trans. I'm fairly sure she is trans. Or, yeah, no. And she's a doctor there, and I'll go sit down. It's the most pleasant experience of having something injected into me. So that came out awful. That it with a needle because I'm
Uh-huh,
tattooed, so
uh-huh. Okay.
with a needle, and so it's like these little pricks on your face, and then they lay you back and you take a little nap. And I got it done first time last year because I made a friend in Puerto Vallarta, and he was in his 50s getting uh what's it called, filler. He was like,
Uh,
come with me, trust me. I was like, well, I've been making the joke for the last 10 years that I'm gonna do it, so why don't we just do
yeah.
And you know what? I was more mad that she was like, "Oh, we'll make sure you still have movement." That's not the point. That's not why I'm getting Botox. Like if I'm getting
Exactly.
Botox, I want the experience of just looking shocked the entire time. Like that's why I'm getting.
Uh, Kind of Goldie Hawn-ish, with the big lips and the smooth skin.
Oh, 100%. Everybody loves
Yes.
Goldie Hawn. Like,
Yes.
come
Uh-huh.
on now.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know. I'm deathly afraid of needles. So even saying that I'm considering it is huge. So hearing that it's just like pricks helps me.
Oh
It's
yeah,
relaxing.
you hurt yourself more pinching yourself than you will feeling getting the Botox.
Okay, that's
Trust me.
good to know.
Like, and I have even though I'm heavily tattooed, I have a fear of needles.
Mm,
So, but people are like, oh, I'm like, no, tattoos are different. They're just scraping your skin with the needle. They're not
mm,
going past a certain level. Don't
yeah.
start with me on that. But no, it was a very pleasant experience. Do recommend. I
Okay.
even like it was very relaxing. I was really surprised at how relaxed because I was like, oh, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna feel them injecting. No, it's like
Yes.
toot 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 toot, and it's like a little tiny little pinch is all you feel, and it's
Hmm.
each one is done so quickly, and before you know, I just fell asleep, and I was
Okay.
out for like a good 30, 45 minutes. I took a little nap.
Hmm.
Um,
Good to know.
yeah, recommend get it in Mexico. It's cheaper there. It's half.
Everything is cheaper there.
Well, yeah, exactly. So that's why, like, I was like, oh, I'm supporting the local economy of Puerto Vallarta when I do it
There you go. Uh-huh. And you're
there.
coming out more beautiful. It means a win-win.
Exactly, exactly. I'm trying to maintain because I started realizing I'm aging like my mom's side, which is, you know, I love my mom to death and she's beautiful, but the men on my mom's side get the big jowls. And I'm like,
Yes. Hmm.
because they're more güeros than my father's sides are más morenitos. And
Uh,
so my father's side's the darker complected, where my mother's side's more lighter complected Hispanic. And so my father's side, they just got their cheekbones became more enhanced. When my mother, man, on
Yes.
my mother's side, they just get the jowls because we have very fat cheeks. The
Mm-hmm.
problem with very fat cheeks is that, gravity eventually grabs
Yes.
hold of them.
Mm-hmm. No, I know what you mean. It's the same on my dad's side. They have the big jowls, and I was always very thin. I didn't break 100 pounds till after high school.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and when I met my husband when I was 30, I was still very thin. And I always told him, if we ever go to San Antonio, I'm going to gain weight because the food there is so good because we would visit a lot. And what happened? Exactly. And so now I've got this, and I worry about that. Like when we get older, it's going to be more like this.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get the job. Like I tell everybody, if anybody watching or listening to this plans on moving to San Antonio and you're fit, expect to not be so very long when you move here. Like I've had
Yes.
several friends who moved from LA here, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna stay fit." And I was like, "Nope, San Antonio, she slows you down. Like you can try to be, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
corporate wise, whether it's fitness, because we're gay, and a lot of the gays I've known who moved from California, like, yeah, I'm gonna be super fit. I'm like,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
yeah, for like all of 3 months, I love that energy for you. And I've met others
Oh,
that wound up becoming much more fit, but they're not the same type of fit as I've met gays from like LA, from San
uh-huh.
Francisco, from New York.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, well, you don't gotta be here. And
No, that's
thankfully,
true.
this is YouTube. This is YouTube and podcasts. The gays are horny, and we're all at the relatively same level of fitness. So,
Yes, I know what you mean. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I've literally gained about 50 pounds since we moved here.
and honestly,
Luckily,
San
I was
Antonio,
small
you
to begin
should.
with, but yeah.
You should be. I was too. I was 100 and I'm 155 now. I moved here when I was 26. So 138 pounds when I moved here. And I was a little twink too. So, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
5'4", so there's no me going up and down in height. This is it.
Yeah.
I'm only going down in height from here. And now people are like, you used to be so much more fit. I'm like, you can shut your mouth, okay? Um, I only gained about 30, 20 pounds. So,
Hey, it's also better than 50.
well, I'm also 5'4", so
Yeah.
that 20 pounds is a significant addition to my body weight, which I
Yeah.
don't mind. I'm 30 fucking 5 years old.
Hey, yeah, there you go. Well, I say the same thing. I'm not much taller. I'm 5'9", but that's not tall. So when I gain, there's not really many places for it to go. So the
That's tall
diet
for
just,
us, though.
that's true. It's a decent height for us. It is. I got lucky with
Yeah, I'm 5'4". My mom's 4'11". Like my mom comes up.
I guess I see myself smaller because I've always been with bigger guys. Kind of thing. And so my
Yeah.
husband, he's 6 foot. So I like to still see myself as small and cute.
I just acknowledge the fact that I'm always the small one because I'm like, people always like, oh, you're so little, and then I'm like, oh, that's right, you're tall. Until they're obnoxiously, because I automatically expect people to be taller than me. I'm 5'4".
Yeah.
Like there's not.
Uh-huh.
So the world is like, okay, but whenever I visit Dallas, um, that's when I realize that, oh shit, I am short. Because I'm in San Antonio. Most people are Hispanic, and so
Hmm.
our height range is about 5'4" till about 5'10". So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay,
Not
I'm
so bad.
close enough to your eyes where I can see
Hmm.
you, but like in Dallas, it's like all I see is that nipple. Have you experienced that traveling other places?
To be honest, I don't travel much, but I mean, most of the time I'm with my family, like you said, they're short. And so I
Yeah.
do feel tall when I'm around my people. In fact, I think I have one cousin who's taller than me, and that's maybe by like an inch. So yeah, so in my family we are kind of tall, even though we're not
Yeah.
tall. But it's funny because, like you said, you go into the regular world, and I'm like, oh, I'm really not tall.
I'm an itty bitty petite little thing.
Yes, I'm so small and cute. I'm small and cute in my head. That those are my descriptors.
I'm small and cute. I go by that. Because I am 5'4". I can always stay that. Like so my mom, 4'11". I think she's 4'10" now.
Uh,
But and
it's
so
funny
on
because,
to the topic of your husband. Has he influenced your writing at all as well?
to be honest, no, because I'm
Mm.
very protective of my writing. And so there've been a couple times when he'll be like, "Oh, maybe this should happen." I'm just like, "Stop right there. No."
So
um,
any of his influences of his experience in your life hasn't made its way into its book, into your
oh,
book?
yeah, yeah. It's nice to be able to see things from, and I don't mean to paint, this perfect picture of a marriage. But it's nice to be able to see from that other side of, I guess, the loneliness.
Uh-huh.
'Cause, it's kind of like, a lot of times people say we like to see a horror because we can see it happening on the TV, but it's not happening to us. It's very cathartic. And, it's now that I'm on, the opposite side of all of that, it's still nice to be able to see it, but not be in it anymore. So absolutely, I
Mm-hmm.
think my relationship with him has given me that distance to where I can write about what I've experienced and it's not so melodramatic anymore. Now I can
Yeah.
mine it more for the experience itself rather than just, crying on the page.
Not my trauma dump anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe a little bit, but not so much. But no, I mean, yeah, definitely. Of course, my life is much different from what it was before I met him. And so, of course, those differences are going to filter down. I think the biggest thing he's given me is perspective on what I've been through before.
That's wonderful. Oh, I love that.
So, and I mean, on top of that, he does put up with me because I'm a lot. So sometimes I like things a certain way, and he lets me. So I'll give him that.
Okay. He lets you be you,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
uh-huh.
Yeah. He just he knows that I can be a brat, and he just lets me be, and
Oh, a
he's
Hispanic man
definitely
being a brat. I
no,
never would know.
never.
Never.
Especially because
Never.
of course I was the firstborn, I'm the mama's boy, and so you know
I've never heard these things before, ever in my
never.
life. I've never heard these things about Hispanic man.
And it's funny because now we have I guess you would say an adopted son. He's 19. And I've always been, very strict. I was very strict as a teacher. That's what I was known for. I ran a tight ship. My father was very strict, and we always knew whenever we got a kid, I'd be the disciplinarian. No, I'm the one that carries him and doesn't let his feet touch the floor.
Oh,
And my husband's like, "You need to get a job." I'm like, "But he helps me here at home." And
he's just a baby.
that's what I tell him. He's just a baby.
He's a 17-year-old baby.
Yeah, so it's funny because now I've become that mom, and he's probably gonna grow up with the same complex as me. So I guess I'm
That
enabling him a little bit.
I mean, we become the parent we didn't think we become. Like I am becoming my mother, and she does not like the fact that I'm becoming my mother.
Hmm.
And I'm like, this is just you, but more of a bitch. So, deal with it.
Yeah, that's the joke too that I'm becoming because my mom, ooh, she is really something, and I say that with all of my heart because I adore that woman. She's also the only woman on this planet that I fear.
Uh-huh.
Or the only person that I fear, period. And it's funny because apparently when I drink, I'm fun and I talk a lot as a drinker,
I
but
like that upper inflection though.
you're not the only one who's pointed that out.
I'm fun.
But apparently
There's
I
a
also become my mother. So the joke is like I'm a transformer. It's like hope you heal. So yes, I'm definitely apparently becoming my mother.
Oh, I can also attest to that experience because my mother, she's 72. We don't let her drink ever anymore because my mother was either very, very good or very, very not good. And there's no transit. My brother's 54 and he never experienced before. So my mom was either very mad or very happy.
Yes.
And you don't know what's going to make her not happy.
Hmm.
And I realized this a few years back. Actually, about 2 years ago, I was like drinking. I started drinking heavy, and then I noticed this switch in my brain that was wanting to get pissed at something. And
Mm.
I was like, "Oh, you're becoming your mother." And so Now I'm like, we'll unbox the cause of that later, whether it's something that we've been through or it's just copying my mother's behavior. But what we're gonna do to mitigate this is we're just gonna stay tipsy and just stay happy, just enough to be flirty and make out with
Uh-huh.
somebody random, but
There
not
you go.
enough to be where I'm drunk and belligerent. And
Hmm.
so it's about balance, you know. And now my
Yes.
mom is 72, so I adore her, I love her. And I used to be scared of her until she had me late. So until I realized, like, I
Uh,
can just put a pillow, mom, and just deal with the part. She's like, you wouldn't do it. I'm like, mom, there are days where you intentionally, you know, you're trying to piss me off, and you're doing it on purpose. And those are moments where I'm like, I would mourn for about a month or two, mom, but
That's a step up from Shady Pines.
it is. And like honestly, she wants to go see the Lord anyway. So if anything, it's a blessing that I help her go see him again. She still too is still Catholic, but much more light.
Hmm.
So she watches the mass from the Basilica in Corpus on her phone, and that's her extent of going. She does not like going to church. So very gay friendly. She's violently anti-homophobic, so she will throw hands even
Good.
though more than likely it will hurt her because she has arthritis.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, that took a little longer for my parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Are there any other gay LGBT people in your family?
It's funny, I told you me and my sister and two of my cousins grew up together very close, and those two cousins turned out to be gay as well.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Are
And
there
then
any from her generation?
um no, no, not that I know of. Mm-mm. So, but
Hmm.
of course, in former
The
generations,
culture,
even
if
if you were, you weren't.
we didn't talk about it, if you don't admit
Yeah.
it. I know my generation, my I think the difference with my mother was the fact that every generation had at least two or three.
Yes. Hmm.
To the point where my grandmother would laugh when my mom outed me. Didn't know she was outing me, was playing a joke on my grandmother. My mom's like, Nathan's gray. And my grandmother's like, damn it, another one? Like, are we ever gonna have more kids? And that was the bulk of my grandmother's response. Cause like one of her siblings was alleged. My mom had two cousins of her generation. One was a lesbian, one was gay. And then my
Hmm.
generation of the only four grandchildren my grandmother had, two of us were gay. And so they had no choice, just be like, yep. I mean, our family makes them, so that's
Hmm.
them.
Well, that's good that you had that precedent before.
Mhm. So it's interesting the difference in dynamic. My mom was automatically de facto,
Hmm.
just like, well, you're my son. I'll fight. I'll kick somebody's ass. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
you can't. You have arthritis, mom. It hurts.
But oh, that makes me so happy though to hear that.
Oh yeah, she's 72, rickety, but she still tries to throw hands. I'm like, you can't. You have a
Well,
cardiology appointment.
she's a Hispanic mom, to be
Oh yeah,
expected.
of course, of course. And are you're not in touch with your father's side? It sounds like.
Not, no, no. Well, for one, I have two aunts and an uncle. Both aunts live out of state, and so I didn't see them all the time like I saw my mom's family. And then we just never. I mean, it's not that I dislike them. There was just never that closeness with them. And
Mhm.
so, of course, I always gravitated more towards my mom's side because that's who I saw literally constantly. I mean, we were that family that had parties all the time, and Christmas is my grandma's birthday, and so every year we have a huge blowout, and everyone comes. So yeah, I never really formed much of a connection with my dad's side, and they're much
Oh,
smaller, a much smaller family.
okay, okay. Well,
Yeah,
that's wonderful. So, Joseph, will you give your full name for everybody to be able to find you when you finally finish your book?
absolutely. It's Joseph Bizavi-Hill. I'm hyphenated now. It's
I
a
mean, hello.
mouthful. Uh, it's a Baiza hyphen Vigil. I always have to spell it out for people.
It's okay. It's okay. And so, when do you think this book will be published? Now that we're putting you on the spot here.
That is a very good question. Actually, I'm kind of cheating and getting ahead of the game a little. I've been scoping out agents because I'm really hoping to be done by the end of the year. And, God willing, I will be able to find an agent who likes it and will want to represent me. The dream is to be published with Alfred A. Knopf because they're Anne Rice's publisher. So I would love to be under the same publishing house. And they just put out beautiful hardbacks. So hopefully within the next maybe, I don't know how long the publishing process is, but I'm hoping within the next maybe 3 years or so.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's keep an eye out for you.
Yeah, one can always hope. And I'm sending stories out to contests right now, and hoping to get my name out there soon.
Good. Good. How many contests have you entered into?
I've entered one, but I literally spent all day yesterday revising old stories because I have tons of old stories that just never saw the light of day. And so I'm hoping I've got my spreadsheet of contests and due dates and all that, and I've got myself organized. So it's happening. They're going to get sent. The thing is, these things aren't free. Contests aren't free.
Oh,
So, yeah. So those reading fees can really add up after a while. But yeah, I'm planning to send more after I get paid this week. So yeah, it took me 46 years, but I'm on the grind still now, and I'm really looking forward to getting out there.
well, I'm sure you're going to do great, my love. And on that note, we're at an hour. Is there any message you want to give anybody watching or listening to this?
Absolutely. For the writers, I know you don't want to hear it, but the only way to do it is to do it. You can read all the books on writing and take all the classes, but you're not writing unless you're writing, which I need to do myself. And just for people in general, tomorrow comes. I wish someone had told me that when I was younger, but tomorrow comes.
Ah, beautiful words to live by. I want to thank you, Joseph, for agreeing to be on this and letting me interview you on your writing process and hearing more about your life and your story and your passion, which is writing and all the other hobbies.
Oh, thank you. I was so excited when you responded on Instagram, and I was showing everyone. It's like, look, look. Shiningnathan's gonna interview me.
And I'm very happy. It was such a pleasure to interview somebody else who's from San Antonio.
I know it's a small world sometimes.
It is here, and San Antonio is a big city, but very rarely gets the representation it deserves, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's true. It's a great city. I do love it.
I just don't want the rent to go up, so that's why we got to make everybody think
Oh
that it
yeah.
sucks still.
I know, because I fear we're down the line once Austin fills up. I think they're just gonna shift down here.
Oh yeah, I'm like, no, San Antonio sucks, everybody. The food is awful. Don't move here. It's horrible.
Yeah,
Don't come here.
it's already
We're
growing.
very unfriendly.
Yeah, we're on the
Oh
edge of
yeah.
the city, and it's getting crowded over here.
No, I can't, for security purposes, I live well within the city.
Mm.
But there are times where I'm like, y'all need to stop building those fucking shitty townhouses. Build something better, you know?
Yes, it's crazy. These new modern-looking townhouses that are popping up out of nowhere.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like the apartment complex, a luxury look, we don't need more luxury shitty apartments. We need more affordable apartments that people will
Yeah,
rent from. You could make a pretty
absolutely.
penny.
Yeah, we like to go eat at the little taco factory by the hospital downtown, and
Mhm.
there it's really happening. It's crazy to see.
Yeah. I mean, even over there across from the Pearl, over there at Lincoln Heights, that
Hmm.
one big compound they just built across from the HEB. I'm like, damn, that's not what we need, people. I know it's Alamo Heights, but y'all ain't that bougie, baby doll.
Oh yes,
Y'all are just Alamo Heights, so calm down.
the
Um,
O-Niners.
I have friends that are O-Niners, and I'm like, chill. It's not that impressive. Like with people from Hollywood Park and all that. I'm like, y'all, never mind. I'm not gonna get into that. On that note,
That's a different interview.
it's a whole different interview. We can have it another time. Let me let you go, darling. This was a beyond a pleasure. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. I loved it. It was such a fun time.
I loved it too, darling. Until next time, I love you and you take care, darling.
Love you too. Bye, Nathan. Thank you.
Bye, baby. How do I? There we go. Bye, honey.
Bye.
That was Joseph Beaza Vigil, he pronounced it better than I did, who was aspiring to be a wonderful, fantastic writer, whom I cannot wait to see what they create and flourish, and my fingers crossed to them that they will reach their goal to be with the production house they want to be. If you want to see more interviews like this or be interviewed by me, feel free to email me at yourgayauntie@gmail.com. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be switching to doing interviews in person. I'm going to be putting forth a lot of money to try to make this happen, to make this a little dream of mine move forward. And if you want to become part of my Patreon to support the stream and to support this content, feel free to go to patreon.com/Shiningnathan for as low as $3 a month. Now, before I go, I want to remind you that I continually work with an organization called Rainbow Youth Project. They are a nonprofit that works on a shoestring budget to help LGBTQI plus youths and teens across the country get access to mental health services. They provide suicide prevention hotlines, housing to homeless LGBT youth, and much, much more. And they are a very small nonprofit trying so hard to make a difference in LGBT youth and teens' lives. I rarely take sponsors, so this is the most quote unquote sponsored, even though I'm not paid to do this, to help them. And I just want to help those in the world as much as I can. So consider donating to Rainbow Youth Project. I'll be putting a link in the description below. So have a discussion in the comments of what things you would like to write or what you would like to see from me next. As always, I love you. Take care of yourself. And remember, your story is just as interesting as anybody else's. And I can't wait to hear more. Take care.